Partners in Crime. It's great to see you today. I have with me Bill Cusano, and we are so excited to welcome him. He is not currently touring with Partners in Crime, but he will be very, very soon. So just to whet your appetite for what's coming, let me tell you a little bit about Bill. He is an author, a retired deacon in the Episcopal Church, and a believer that the process rather than the outcomes is what matters most. Retired now, Bill attacks every project as his ministry, giving it his full commitment. And while The Ghost and the Key, which is this book that we'll be talking about today, is his debut novel, he's always been a writer, publishing short stories and poems early on, and then a daily spiritual blog started in 2008.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations and welcome, Bill.
It's great to be here, Gina.
Oh, thank you so much. So tell me a little bit about your first book in the Old Cranberry Ladies Garden Club, The Ghost and the Key.
You got the name right. So not only is it a long title, but it's a bit of a strange, quirky tale. So the story is about Mildred Cranberry, who is the present heiress of the Cranberry estate, which was a farm back in the 1800s. And the original owner was Chester Cranberry, who met his fate with two pitchforks in the barn back in 1832. His murder was never solved, but it has always been legend that there is something that could have solved that crime, or at least pointed to his wife, Elcira, as the murderess. And that is a brass key that doesn't exist, or at least no one has been able to find it until now. So the key shows up in the rose garden of the carriage house of the current Cranberry estate, and Aunt Sylvie, Mildred's aunt, finds it and is so excited she wants to tell everybody in the garden club, and Mildred starts to panic because the presence of this key could jeopardize the entire inheritance of the property. So we have a 192-year-old murder mystery, a cold case that is suddenly warm. And the garden club ladies are going to get themselves involved in trying to figure out what was the whole purpose for Elcira to start a garden club in the first place, and how did she manage to get away with murdering her husband if that's what happened? So that's the mystery behind the opening of this story. And we have Mildred, we have her Aunt Sylvie, and we have one other little twist here, and that is that the property, Mildred had promised her granddaughter, Maggie, that she would inherit the property when Maggie gets married. And so Maggie is engaged to Sam Castleby, who is the son of a property developer. So Mildred could lose this property either way. So can she hold on to the property? She may need some spiritual help with that. And Elcira Cranberry is just a ghost willing to come and help her.
Oh, I loved it. I loved Elcira. The relationships between Mildred and her granddaughter and her aunt and the garden club, all of it felt so real. They felt like people that you'd want to be part of a garden club with or in their family.
So it's interesting because this story actually started in my mind in 2005. My original note about it was, let's see if I can find it. Yeah, a group. At the time, it was called the Old Greenwich Ladies Garden Club, and a group of staid, respectable widows and spinsters have to meet to have tea, brag about their gardens, and plot the perfect murder. So I thought I was going to be writing about a group of ladies who, in the in the style of Arsenic and Old Lace were going to, do some people in that they didn't like. Uh, but then I had presented this a, to Manhattanville Writers Week. I had written two character sketches, one
Mhm.
for one for Elcira and one for Jacqueline Hudson. And you'll get to know who she is when you read the book. But my thought was that I was going to write um, a story that each chapter was a different one of the ladies from the garden club telling the story. But they didn't like it. When I read it to the group in the writers group, the writers club, they they were all thumbs down. It was like, no, no way, we're not doing that. So I just put it aside and said I better learn how to write a little bit better than that. And but I held on to them, and I was fascinated by creating unique characters that had secrets. So it was my wife who continued to, she read everything that I ever wrote and listened to all my sermons. So she put up with me a lot, especially when my writing was bad. But she was she was an avid reader. She would read 2 to 3 books a week and lean over and while we were driving, she would lean over and say, listen to this. And she'd read a paragraph from one of her books that she was reading. So I got to know about different women authors and historical fiction, which was not my thing. I mean, I had written four novels from age 17 to 35, and only one had a historical background to it, and I was about World War II. But I didn't really delve into character the way a lot of the books that my wife was reading did. Um, sure, there was a lot of background and description and history, but the character development was what got me. I realized that that's what I need to focus on. I need to just create fun or interesting characters. And they're a lot more fun to spend time with than just working on plot. Uh, and so I learned a lot from her, and I started reading all of the books on her Kindle, and really got a feel for what's become the main literary group, which is women writing about history and other women. And I thought, well, in honor of my wife, when she passed away in 2024, I said, I have to write this book for her because she had said to me when I retired, you need to keep busy. You're the type of person that has to be busy. I said, well, I'm going to just keep writing. So she said, good. And I said, the first book she said, you need to then pull out those ladies and write about them. And so, so she knew that these ladies would be special, and I wanted to make it special for her. So the ladies and I get together every morning and we plot out what we're going to do next.
So, okay, so let's get this out of the way. There are a lot of characters in your book.
Yeah.
Um, and you have a reference at the beginning, but I think that readers should know to not be intimidated when they see that list of characters because you introduce them slowly and with a lot of background. So it's really easy to differentiate who you're talking about and who's talking and who's in that section of the plot.
My editors will be glad you said that. I had two editors on this book, and the first reaction, because I had the opening scene in the book was originally the garden club luncheon. So the first thing the reader was struck with about a dozen ladies that were all different talking at the same time, and I was told, "Don't do that. That's going to turn everybody off." So, so I did a few things that I've read so many books on writing and publishing, and it's like all of the advice I absorbed it all, and then I didn't follow it. So, or I didn't follow it all. For example, the I put a prologue in the book because the historical component to this story matters. So knowing what happened between Chester and Deborah and Alcira at the beginning when Chester was murdered was important. It's it's more important than who killed him because it sets the tone for the relationship and the secrets that have survived 200 years. So why is this? Why are there still secrets? And that's what we get to play with when I go back in time for book two.
Now, you did a really good job of entwining the past with the present. So why did you decide to do that and make this a 200-year-old mystery that they're trying to solve now?
You know, I did. It was actually back in. I thought about making it an historical problem back at the beginning because I thought that there were too many tropes, too many books out there that were groups of amateur sleuths that got together to solve a crime, and it was although they're great, and I've read the Thursday Murder Club, which is really popular. I didn't want to repeat that. I wanted them to get involved in a different way. So I was challenged to figure out, well, what are they going to be looking for? So, given the fact that they're all garden club ladies, it had to come out of the garden. So that's why I thought, well, look, if there's some physical thing that ties to an old cold case, that would be beyond the scope of any modern forensics. So that it's like so old that none of the none of the normal ways to try to solve this today would work. Then what could that be? And because I had started with two characters, and Elcira starts out in the way I wrote her the first time was telling the story about her great 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 granddaughter Mildred. So I said, oh, so if she's going to be in the story, it has to be historical, but she's got to be a ghost. So then I had a whole different problem, which is how do I incorporate the ghost into the readings when nobody can see her? And so I had to have one character have the ability to know that there was a presence of spirits and to talk to them, and everyone thinks she's crazy.
Oh, but she was lovely.
So it's actually, the characters kind of told me how to do this.
Mhm.
I I did I do have a lot of experience with ladies' garden clubs and women's clubs and altar guilds and bridge clubs and all of that stuff through my wife. And in fact, when I launched this book, the first place I went was to the Rye Women's Club, and we I was able to talk about the book, and that was a little bit tough to do because my wife had been a part of that club for so long, and they all loved her. Uh, but when they told me that they felt it was a good tribute to her, I was pleased.
Yeah, it's a lovely tribute. So, what do you think makes Mildred's journey and this story relatable to people that are different ages or not part of a garden club or don't have an inheritance that they're faced with losing. I mean, there are a lot of challenges here that she's.
Yeah. So I, during the pandemic,
Mhm.
I was running a nonprofit feeding program in Port Chester, New York. And I was lucky that I had worked out a way that we could continue to be open to help feed the hungry when most people were losing their jobs and had to stay home. So a gentleman came up to me one day. We were handing out meals in the parking lot because we couldn't have people come in and sit down.
Mhm.
And he pulled up, parked a bit of a distance away, and walked. And I saw him coming. He was fairly well dressed. He had his head down, and he motioned for me to come over. And my team was there, and I just walked over to him, and he said, I'm embarrassed to ask this, but is there any way that I can get some food because I lost my job and I may lose my house and I need to feed my family? I said, sure. So I just packed up some bags. He didn't even want to come and shop. We had a thing set up with tables with food. He didn't want to do the shopping. So I put bags together and brought him to his trunk. And he gave me such a hug. And I realized this man had a job, had a home, and was living paycheck to paycheck in a wealthy area because he came from one of the surrounding villages. And I said, this affects everybody. So the possibility, the threat of losing your home is probably third on the list from losing your life, losing the life of a loved one, uh, and losing a home is probably right up there. So I thought, well, what if the story is not about poor people worried about losing a home, but rich people? Could anyone relate to that? And the way the story unfolds is that all of the stereotypes you have and all of the prejudices you have get flipped at some point. So there's an immediate chuckle reaction to something, and then you find out, oh, there's a serious side to that, or there's a reason for it. And so what I was trying to do is break through the discourse out there between the all the opposing viewpoints on things with different opinions and say, well, what if we have a conflict where everyone gets it wrong, where both sides that have valid viewpoints on something realize that their viewpoint isn't the full story. So I didn't intend to have a theme like that, but it just kind of played out that by making fun of the right and the left and liberal and conservative and value and net worth and all of that stuff, it just would evolve into a tender story about people helping each other try to survive.
One of the most impactful scenes for me, and I think I can share this without having a spoiler, is one of the garden club ladies, always proper, always dressed to a T, always perfect, is in the hospital visiting a loved one and completely flips out. And I think we've all kind of
Yeah.
been
So
there. You just.
uh, that was part of my grieving process. Writing through grief is to the things that I was having trouble dealing with myself, with my
Yeah.
own loss. I decided to share with my character and say, And then one thing I learned was that so many books, I mean, the death appears in a lot of books, but then it disappears. I listened to one podcast talking about how writers tend to write a scene and a death scene, and then the next scene it's as if the person was never there. And I said, well, that's not the way it really is with people. It lingers, it stays. Um, yeah, the most tender scene is between Mildred and Sylvie, and I tell you, I can't read that now without crying. So I just it's I know I'm still grieving when I cry through my books. So, but I guess I figure that if it touches me, it'll touch someone else. And I did want to share something. I asked this woman if I could. When the book came out, I took a week off and went down to Long Beach Island and just was by myself for a week. And I went to the Long Beach Island book swap and I carried around books in my car. So I went in and I was just looking around. I wanted to ask the bookstore owner if she would carry my book. But there was a woman there shopping in a huge wall filled with all the books that I knew from my wife. I mean, they're all the ones that she read and I read. Um, so the woman was looking at a bunch of Kristen Hanna books, and the young woman who was helping her, a high school student, was answering her questions about each book, and I was blown away that the high school student had read them all. Uh, and then she asked about one, and the student said, I don't know that one. And I said, oh, I know that one. So I explained what that was about with the sisters and all of this stuff. And so she was still trying to decide. And I said, don't go anywhere. Buy your book, but don't go anywhere. So I went out to the car and I got a book for the girl and for her. And I came back, I signed them, and I just gave them to her. And she wrote me a note. She said, her name is Anne Oliveri. And she said, Dear Mr. Cusano, we met at the LBI book swap. You were very gracious and gave me a copy of your novel. I absolutely enjoyed the book. The characters reminded me of my mom and her network of friends, all kind, thoughtful, and loving women. I always believed in the signs from heaven as my mom is no longer with us. The story touched my soul, and the addition of I'm not going to talk about, well, and the addition of something special in here was a special surprise. Looking forward to the next novel in the series. I just sent her a copy.
Oh, that's so
So,
sweet.
so when I received that, I said, I'm done. That's perfect. That's what the book is for. It's to I have a dear friend a, has been a long time friend, close friend of my wife. They were sisters-in-law together, and if Carol Carol watches this, she's going to start crying. But uh, she lost her husband before Kathleen passed away, and so now she has lost her two best friends. So we talk a lot. We email back and forth, and she I wrote this to I wanted to take what I believe is true about our extending beyond life into some spiritual form. But I also wanted her to see it because I wanted her to believe that the cardinals or some other messenger of your spirit can just remind you that this the person you love is still around. And so she sends me pictures of cardinals all the time. So it's like that's what I wanted to happen with the book. I want people to feel that, well, maybe the love the love we know goes on. The grief doesn't end, but the hole doesn't get filled. It's a matter of what can we do, and this is where the deacon in me comes out, right? So what can we do to just feel like we're not alone? But
Yeah,
and so when I take my world cruise in December, my wife's going to be with me.
that's going to be wonderful.
Yeah,
What are you most excited about seeing?
I haven't even given it much thought, except that I met an author from who was born in Tasmania,
Mhm.
and I met her at the Killer Nashville Writers Conference, and met her and her husband, and she had I ordered one of her books called Vanishing Fall, and that was an interesting book because at first it was slow, and I wasn't, but the character was slow. That was her character flaw, or if it was a flaw, was that everyone thought that she was not smart, but she was very smart. So I fell in love with the character. I was listening to the ebook, and the narrator did a great job. Uh, So I wrote a review, and I even I contacted her. Her name is Poppy G, and I said, I'm going to be going on this cruise. I'm going to want to take Joelle with me, her character. Um, I have a podcast that two of my characters, who are the crows in the book,
Mhm.
Lila and Dana, the sisters of Elthira, they appear as crows, and they decided that they're going to have a podcast on Elthira's Substack account. So we do podcasts with the two of them, and they interviewed Joelle from Vanishing Falls.
Oh, cool.
So, so my goal is to take a whole bunch of people's characters with me, and then talk about what those characters are seeing and what they're doing in all these different places.
Oh, that's going to be so much fun.
So I'm a crazy person that way because I treat the characters as if they're real. I give them identity. And in this AI age, that's easy to do. So why not? So
Yeah, the
yeah,
sisters
that's
were
the,
hilarious.
so I can't wait to get to Tasmania and see how close I can get to the place where the book was about. Um, but I think that's the thing is if
Mhm.
when we read about these places, we feel like we were there. So when we go to them, then it's like going home. And I'm really looking forward to going to see some of the places that I read about.
Oh, it's so
I
exciting.
I would love to have people read these books and say, "Oh, this is like," and name one of the authors that my wife loved, because that's one of the questions that you're supposed to be able to answer. Well, what authors are you like? And I said, you I would love to say that I know, but I don't want to sound I don't want to sound like I'm bragging about it. But if I if I can get people to just read this and say, yeah, I feel a little better about the fact that the people I love who passed away are still with me.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, you have after The Ghost and the Key, there are two more books in the series, correct?
There will be more than that, but so far there's uh, published already is The Widow Murderess, which is the, the beginning of Alcira's story after Chester's death. So, and that's when Deborah has her baby, which is Chester's son.
So we get to
So,
go back and live the rest of the story.
yes. So yeah, and people ask me, people who read the first book said, well, wait a minute. We have questions about what's going to happen next. And you're going back 200 years. And I said, well, what are your questions? And I made notes and I said, okay. And so I started writing the sequel to the first book. Um, but so The Ghost and the Key is the first one. The Widow Murderess is the second. The third that I'm doing the third rewrite on right now is The Sparrow and the Crow. And then the fourth one is And the War Came, and that's during the Civil War.
Mhm.
So we're going to follow the family, the ancestry chart that's in
Yeah.
that's laid out in the book. I figured I better go and write about each generation now. So, so the first generation is Alcira and Deborah, and then the second generation is the seven kids of Alcira and the one son of Deborah. Yeah, I didn't realize what I was doing when I wrote down in the first book that she had seven kids. Um, seven kids in 7 years is a lot. Uh, Luckily, two of them are twins. But the I didn't think I was going to go back in time and write a historical version of this. But when I decided to do that, I said, well, now I have to take out, what did I say? What did I say happened in the past? That now has to happen. So I spent a lot of time for the first book going through the historical documents here in Greenwich, Connecticut to try and get a feel for what, who owned slaves and what was it like and so forth. So the history that involves slavery and slave catchers and all sorts of interesting things is real. It's just a matter of, the family itself is not real, but the incidents have truth to them. And that's what I tried to do. But that inspired me to write the second book. But why not write about that period?
Oh, and I
And
loved it.
and that makes life it's so different to write about life when there are no cell phones and no bathrooms. So it's like, oh my goodness. But the interesting thing is that there are parallels. I think there are parallels to the present in a country divided in 1861, which is what I'm up to in the third book, and a country divided today. So it's like, well, can we have a family struggle with understanding both sides of the slavery issue? And then maybe we say, well, maybe we should think about being open to other ideas today, but we'll see.
Oh, I can't wait to read the books. I'm very excited. All right. So, where can our followers find you until it's time for the tour and for the next two or the next book to come out?
So the easiest place right now is on my website, which is billcusano.com.
Mhm.
And I also have a presence on Substack. I have two of them. I have billcusano.substack.com and I have elciracranberry.substack.com. So the on Substack, I call myself the nonprofit author.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is that many, many writers think that they can just write a book and then they're going to make all this money and they're going to be able to live on it. And that's not how it works. So I'm trying to use the publishing side of my business to help writers with the business side of what they're doing. Because I have a background, I have an MBA, I have a background in accounting and finance, and I can figure out how to keep track of my sales and my expenses. But most people I talk to don't know anything about how to manage a business. So even though I'm retired, I'm finding myself very busy, talking to other people about how to get their books done. And when I was out of work for a while, I did that for other people. I formatted their nonfiction books and got covers for them and published them through Lulu and other, print on demand places. So I did that for four authors. I did five books, and I felt like I know this business. It's just gotten better. So maybe it's gotten easier. So maybe it's something I want to get done. I also want to get a copy. I want to do a audio book for the second book. But after visiting with book clubs saying that they would have liked to hear the first book as an audio book, I may have to go back and do that one too.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is quite a commitment. And I think that I'm enjoying it. It's giving me a reason to get out there and visit people. I also started something where there's an app that tells you where these little free libraries are.
Yeah.
So I download the app, and everywhere I go, I look up local little free library boxes,
Mhm.
and I drop off a book, and I record myself doing it and post it on Facebook. So
Oh,
so this way, it's like, where's Waldo except with books. And I encourage that. I think I tell people that it's easier to give away a book than to advertise the book.
mhm.
So if I could give away one book for every one I sell, that's twice as many readers,
Mhm.
and it's cheaper than trying to get them to see ads on stuff. But I am looking at ways to advertise, but I want to get more books out there first.
That's amazing. I can't wait to get my hands on your next book. I've gotten to read The Ghost and the Key, so the next one is up
I
soon.
don't know if you can see this.
Yes. Oh, it keeps
So
blacking out.
yeah, I know, because I have this crazy background on.
It's beautiful. I love your book covers. They're amazing.
Yeah, I'll take off the background and see if it works. Okay, how's
Oh,
that?
that's perfect. Yes.
So the artist that does these um, is Robert Hunt, and he's in
Hmm.
California, and he's done some amazing work. And I got to meet him through my book designer, who's Glenn Adelstein. So I'm building a team, and we're just going with these books. My editors, my designers, and now I've contracted with an audiobook publisher, so producer. So yeah, that's why I'm nonprofit.
That's it.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a. I've been waiting my whole life to do this. To be able to do this full time, and it's easier if you have some financial support to be able to do it. But we'll see what I can dream up on the cruise. I'll have 950 people to talk to, so we'll see if they throw me overboard or not.
I am sure you'll talk to almost everyone.
I'm working on it. So I really enjoyed this. Thank you, Gina.
Absolutely. I hope to have you back when the next book gets released. Book
Yeah,
3 will be in the
yeah,
spring. And
yeah.
so we'll be hanging out again then.
Okay, when I get
All
back.
right.
Yeah. You can,
Terrific.
yeah, you can follow me on Substack if you want to know where I am on the cruise. So
Oh, I'm
it'll,
definitely going to do that.
it'll be fun. Thank you
Cool.
much.
Thank you so much. Partners in Crime, check out Bill and his website. His website link is in the show notes so you can find him and his Substacks. So check them out and follow along on his trip and his books. Talk to you soon.
So long.